Hey everyone, this is Castor Reptorial. You know, um, so many days I now wake up, turn on my computer and see a little bit of news and just find myself wishing that that the world, that politicians, the media, universities would just slow down for a little bit and think about what they are doing. An article I just saw this morning. I'm recording this a bit later in the day. It's got a little cold. Okay, so the original article I read, I even read this little part, when I'm about to quote, in the beginning of this video. I quote again, Russia, whose relations with the West have deteriorated to levels of Cold War-era hostility, has denied that last week's chemical weapons attack took place and even accused Britain of staging it to whip up anti-Russian hysteria. Now, the deterioration of the U.S.-Russia relations was savagely escalated, with the mainstream media all over the West, and all over the world really, blaring non-stop made-up stories about Trump-Russia collusion, and then some ridiculous month-long or longer than that Stormy Daniels' porn story, which I didn't even bother to watch, just heard and read about a little because I really would like to keep the sanity and intellect I've struggled all my life to hold on to while being drugged and bored to near death by government schools and bureaucratic incompetence. One person even mentioned to me that the only news network from the US that the rest of the world broadcasts is CNN, a network that has openly admitted, as was revealed by Project Veritas, to be well aware that his stories were bullshit and force-fed to the people only for ratings. And the same is certainly true with the Stormy Daniels porn story. Distracting people with porn is a distraction technique that has been used by rising leftist regimes before. Now, if it's true that the only news network that the rest of the world hears from the US is CNN, it certainly explains the senseless hatred of conservative values, which really were the only remaining hope for the world. See, the political battle that took place in the United States 2016 November election, and the where conservatives in liberal friend and family circles were marginalized brutally, where people rallied to support Trump if, on the condition that he would control immigration, now stop immigration in its tracks until we could figure out what was going on and what to actually do about the situation, kind of like, when there's an attack, when there are people, these people in Syria may have been gassed by something. We'll get to that in a minute. When a crime has taken place, when a war crime has taken place specifically, people, the whole message of let's wait and figure this out, well, that's a pretty fair approach to ask to take towards immigration as well. And on the condition that he would recreate jobs, which was doing for a while. Unemployment is low for the time being in many places. But the problem is, it's very difficult for young people who have spent 20 years in school, all of their formative years, having their time wasted by social justice indoctrination. And from all I hear of school, it's massively worse now. Difficult to them to adjust to the working world when they've had no preparation for it, and families aren't exactly doing a great job. The war of ideologies, where in 2016 the Republicans rallied around Trump, wasn't really about Trump himself. It was about what the campaign and the elections revealed. The massive emotional rage and irresponsibility among just about every population in the world. Politicians on both sides, certainly, and world leaders, most of all, that was laying dormant only until people, well, and among many of the masses as well, the anger, the passion of hatred, where people were screaming racist and Nazis at others with no evidence, no grounding at all. That all started, well, that not started, was revealed that people had that in them when they did not get what they wanted. Were asked to face up to legitimate arguments about immigration, about tolerance of intolerance, about being responsible in economics and family values, and a conservative actually winning an election rigged in the Democrats' favor. They certainly threw a tantrum after that. Well, among the many tantrums they've been thrown before, but then it just got more and more out of control. So, this is kind of the point I made with the omnibus bill. Very confusing. Now, I should say about that, I think people have pointed out, and it's a fair point, but this recent action really does question again where things are going. But a fair point was, there was an omnibus bill passed by Barack Obama, signed by Barack Obama, and he didn't use it for what it was originally intended. Maybe Trump was trying to do that. Really hard to say now. I think one of the things that's going on is that Trump is very quick to react to things, but we really needed to slow down and think on this one. Vladimir Putin says the attack violated the UN Charter, and that the chemical attack was staged by rebels to draw the US into conflict. Well, it wasn't just the US. It was the US, the UK, and France. But the rest of that statement is completely possible. I would even say probable that ISIS used the chemical weapons, that rebels used the chemical weapons on their own people, which they are perfectly willing to do, framed Bashar al-Assad for the attack, all to lure in the West to another conflict it can't win. Probability of that is very high. This is why the people keep screaming, wait, find out. The OPCW, that's the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, investigation was just about today, in fact, to get underway. Could they at least wait for that? There was no proof that Bashar al-Assad had been the one to use chemical weapons on his own people. Now, the Syrians and Assad himself were curiously unrattled by the attack. It did destroy targets that Trump, advised by the FBI, labeled as chemical weapons laboratories. Who knows if they really were? But many of the missiles were shot out of the sky by Syrian anti-aircraft technology, which means the country has not yet been reverted back into a blasted hellscape. But it also means that if the ISIS extremists and rebels manage to take control of the country, they automatically have a base of operations with anti-aircraft and anti-missile technology. The West needs to stop this and take a step back from the situation in Syria. We cannot be responding to suspected culprits of suspected attacks anymore. The Syrian Arab Republic condemns the US, Britain, France assault and claimed it as having violated international law. It may well have. It's very hard to tell right now what the long-term consequences of this rash action is going to be. Now, Ben Shapiro, who is very thorough in his research, said that Israel has struck inside Syria more than 100 times since 2012, mostly at suspected weapon convoys heading for the Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Middle East, and Africa as well, are chaotic messes, and have been, particularly since Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama waged a hailfire of drone warfare upon them and destabilized comparatively peaceful regimes. Hold on a minute, I gotta go feed Blackberry. Okay, I'm back. Blackberry's my kitty. So, where were we? Reading off my script. Oh, yes. So, the Assad regime, whatever it might be, we can't afford for Syria to fall back in extremist hands, in ISIS hands. We cannot be responding to suspected culprits of suspected attacks anymore. President Trump had been given a truly horrible situation to have to deal with. Ben Shapiro talked about this in his video, The Situation in Syria, which is one of several I will link to. He is one who goes along with Assad having committed this act. But the point still remains, and he does this research, so maybe he did. The problem is we don't have proof, and we need to stop acting before we have proof. The problem still is we can't be getting involved in more foreign wars. We really need to fix our own countries, our own cultures first. But President Trump did inherit a terrible situation. At the same time, the West cannot intervene in every humanitarian crisis occurring all over the world. We just can't. We have neither the resources nor the cultural stability to do so. And if we don't get our act together, we may never be able to do so again, to save the world again, if we ever do actually get back to our core values. Now, for a very brief moment, the Democrats and the Republicans found just a little bit of common ground in that if we're going to do anything about the situation in Syria, we need a clear strategy. Well, a clear and intelligent strategy has to begin with some fact-finding first. If these horrific chemical attacks did in fact take place, and it looks like some certainly did, was it Assad's regime? Was it under Assad's orders or approval? The evidence is still looking pretty dicey at this point, and we cannot afford any more rash actions. One of the allies of Damascus, Moscow, called an emergency meeting of the UN. Not that the UN has been successful in stopping wars before, though actually that should be all the more reason to be concerned. I have been saying, as have many others, that we need to stop this political correctness hysteria and political warring amongst ourselves so that we can address the problems and the threats all over the world intelligently, which, in some tragic irony, is going to have to include seriously questioning the motives and information gathered from intelligence agencies. So, I'm going to have to wrap up for tonight. It's evening now. I will come back to this issue soon. My voice is getting tired. I will come back with a part 2, and maybe more, because this is going to be a long sequence of causes and consequences. So in the video description below, I have given the links to several articles and videos that are very much worth your time reading and listening to. And as always, feel free to comment or bring new perspectives to my attention. Until my next video, this is Kestrel Raptorial. See you later.